Live on WFLA Now. This is Run for Fun with running enthusiast Lee Spann.
All right, welcome back to the Stream Center for this week's episode of Run for Fun. The show is designed to not necessarily show you how to always get faster, but ways to enjoy your runs. And because if you like something, you stick with it, it becomes a part of your life. And that consistency, that showing up every day, that is what makes you a stronger runner. So I'm your host, Lee Spann. I'm a meteorologist here at WFLA in Tampa, but I'm also an avid runner, and I wish someone had gotten to me sooner with this whole Run for Fun thing, because when it finally clicked for me, all I wanted to do was share it with other people. And of course, the person who got to me was Coach Maria. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Lee. How are you?
Well, I'm doing just great. Took a little spill on a run recently, but it's one of the least, just a couple of little scrapes. That,
a lot of people have been falling lately.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. We gotta pay attention. It's hard, but you run in the dark, so that's kind of extra hard.
We try to brighten things up as much as we can, right? So we continue to talk about Strava, and I had a question about it from someone. So we'll go through it. So Strava is a free app that you can download on your phone, and then you can use this as like a social media, right? Mm-hmm. So we have our WFLA Run for Fun group. When we take a look at how many group members we had 269 of those members. And we got a new one, and I wanted to show you Thomas. He actually goes by Tommy. I'm a friend of his. He says, this is my first run in the group. And so we're glad to have him. But then he asked Maria, and I meant to ask you this before so you'd have a heads up. There is a Strava part that you can pay for. And he asked me what more that would give. And I go, I don't know. I've never paid for the extra part. So what does it give you there as opposed to the free version?
I think I have always had the paid version. So I don't know what you don't get. But I, with mine, get data. I get heart rate. I get analysis, like an RPM on how hard you're working or how little you're working. Or I don't know if you can get race segments if you're just have the free app, and there's race segments. There's a lot of things. I think it's worth it.
You do think it's worth it?
It's worth it to pay the extra. And it's just kind of fun to see. Like, you'll get your statistics yearly for the free one, but I think you get more data analysis. Okay. I'm a data geek. So
you are. That is true.
I do like more data.
That is your whole job.
Yeah. So it is fun for me. But it's easily explained, so it's not like it's confusing or anything.
Okay.
So I would say yes.
Because Beth Rousseau, who we've had on the show a couple of times, asked me the same thing. She's like, should I continue paying for it? I go, well, I don't know. I don't pay for it. So so I just wanted to let people know I typically say it is a free app. So there is a paid version if you would like to get more data.
I think it's like $50 a year.
Okay.
So I think it's worth it. Okay. But it depends on the person.
Well, whether you've paid for the Strava extra data or not, the whole Strava group it's coming up January 20th.
Sure is. We're in the taper now. It's taper time.
Next Saturday, we're all going to the BDR race in Safety Harbor to run the 10K.
We'll be there. Come on down. And even if you didn't follow the plan, you can still come and cheer everybody on or just run for fun.
Meet some of the other 269 people on our group, right? And there was a huge race this weekend as well. And that's what today we're going to start by talking about the Dopey challenge that was going on at the Disney Marathon, the Disney races this weekend, because there's actually many in the Florida area that have multi races over one weekend. And so you got to have some pretty good strategies for that. So we're going to bring in right now Kim Sherman, who just finished being a Dopey.
Hey, Dopey.
So first of all, Kim, tell us a little bit about how you got into running and then why you like the Dopey challenge and what it is.
So it's kind of funny, actually, how I got into running. One of my very good friends from high school, I saw that she had finished the LA Marathon probably 15 years ago. And I was like, well, if she can do it, I can do it. Signed up for a 5K, and I felt like I was going to die at the end of the 5K because I didn't really quite understand it. I remembered the mile run in high school, and I had never run before that. So I was like, oh, maybe running's not for me. Took a break for a couple of years, but then moved around and found a very good running group when I was living in St. Louis. And we constantly just like ran all the time. It became a huge social thing. And I just started signing up for races that way. Started out 5Ks, moved up to 10Ks, did my first half marathon there, my first marathon in St. Louis. And I'm a very large Disney fan. I found out that Disney did runs. And needless to say, that was history. I've been doing Run Disney now since 2015. I've done at least one of their raced weekends every year. And then I found out about the Dopey Challenge. And at first I was like, no.
Well, it sounds dopey. That's why they call it that.
Yes, it's dopey. And I was just like, absolutely not. Like, a marathon is hard enough as it is on its own. But to add a 5K, a 10K, and a half marathon all before a marathon, it's like, who in the world would do this? And then I signed up for my first one.
Yeah.
And I was like, absolutely never again. I finished it. Very happy that I finished it. I was like, one and done for me. And then I was like, registration came back around. And I'm just like, well, it was fun. I enjoyed it. It's a challenge. So why don't we try it again? And needless to say, I just actually finished my 5th Dopey this past weekend.
Excellent.
So it's kind of crazy. It is a lot of fun. It's very challenging, both like mentally and physically. But here I am now, a 5-time Dopey finisher.
Crazy.
What did you do for training for Dopey? And have you done it differently each year, or have you like kind of stuck with the same kind of consistency?
I've kind of changed it up. This year was a little bit different for me because I also did the Chicago Marathon in October. So I have basically been consistently marathon training / Dopey training since June. And I didn't realize how hard that was going to be.
That's very hard mentally.
Just to keep it going and to keep up the intensity. So what I did more this year to kind of keep it up with what I needed is I did introduced a lot more strength training. So I kept my hard days hard. So I would run, and then I would do leg day with heavy weights. And I think that is what really helped me because I'm able to walk around right now.
Surprisingly,
it
even
doesn't
yesterday.
hurt. Yes. I mean, I was a little bit sore after the marathon, and then I spent 8.5 hours in Magic Kingdom after. No naps or anything like that, but I was just surprised like that I'm feeling as good as I did, considering I did run all that. I know the half marathon did get shortened by 6 miles, but all things considered, I think out of everything, this is probably one of the best Dopies I've felt afterwards.
And the walking around actually really helps you.
Yes.
It makes you recover quicker. So that's probably very good for you that you walked all over.
Yeah, so that was fun. Spent the entire day in Magic Kingdom after running the half marathon, the entire day in Epcot after running the 10K, which I normally don't do. It's normally just like casual walking around, wearing my compression socks and like using my Theragun and stuff like that to help like try and get some sort of recovery between the different races. But no, I felt great. It was just crazy to me.
Yeah.
And your body's probably used to it at this point since
Yes.
you've done it 5 times. Like that does make a difference if you've done it more than one time. Your body knows what to do.
Yeah.
And so she mentioned it, but when you have these multiple races on multiple days, that can also mean you have different weather, especially around here. That some days might be hot, some days might be cold, some days might be rainy, and you guys got a pretty intense rainy day this year. Until I was texting with you.
Yes, I was texting Lee on Friday, be like, "Hey, I know that there's rain on Saturday. What are the chances? What is it going to be like? Like, will it be clear?" And she was kind of giving me all the rundown of what the weather was going to be like that day. She was spot on with it too, which is fantastic. So I knew exactly what to expect Saturday morning for the half. And I was very lucky in the fact that I finished the shortened course before the rain started. I was back at my hotel at that point, but I had a couple friends who were still out in the course, and they're like, no, we got absolutely downpoured on when we got into Epcot.
Yeah.
But it's just something that you kind of expect. Like, you kind of prepare for it when you know that there's rain. I mean, you just kind of do the best you can, embrace the rain. That's what I've learned, is that if you know it's going to rain, you embrace it. There's really nothing you can do. You're going to get wet. Your shoes are going to get wet.
Yep.
Things are going to rub that you don't want rubbing.
Yes, true.
But you kind of make the best of it for what you can.
So, Maria, what do you tell your clients before they start, a race weekend, a multi-race weekend?
Well, first of all, the most important thing is that you are able to pivot. Like you have to, when you're doing multiple races back to back, things are going to be thrown at you. It might not be the race distance change, but weather will be thrown at you. People not being in the right place at the right time, things not being at the right place at the right time. Like there's a lot of people, there's a lot of pieces that have to be together to have it go. So you have to go in flexible. You can't go in with the mindset of this is going to be the way it is. You have to be able to pivot.
And then the different race weather.
Yes.
I mean, especially when you get a big cold front to come through, some days might be cold, some days might be hot, or it might be the other way around. So packing for that, I mean, do you bring all kinds of running clothes?
Absolutely. What I've learned is the weather here can be crazy, and I've learned to start bringing different types of layers for every race, so that way I always have a backup. So it's like I'll bring a tank top and a long sleeve shirt, I'll bring shorts, I'll bring leggings, and then that way when I know what the weather is for the night before, I pick out the pieces that I need, or ponchos in this case, because you know that there's a chance that it might rain that day, just so that way you're prepared. I mean, I shed that before the race started just because running in a plastic poncho is not fun.
But you had it for the beginning of the race. I mean, before the race.
And then also to keep warm too, because it's like you also don't want to start it completely cold, because then that's when you have a risk of hurting yourself. And then this was the 5K. So that was the very first race of the weekend. I was helping my friend Brooke do her first run Disney race ever too. So it's kind of learning and keeping it. And then I always bring, especially for these type of weekends, multiple pairs of shoes, because I'm very glad that I did, because if the shoes had gotten wet and I had gotten rained on, if they were the same shoes I was going to wear for the marathon the next day, I would have started in cold, wet shoes. And that's...
And heavy.
Yes.
Heavy, wet, cold, gross shoes.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's better for your feet to change shoes in a situation like that too. Because if something's rubbing or if there's blisters or something, you want a shoe that's different. So, and all of that stuff you have to be prepared for. Like if you do get a blister, or if it's humid, you have to, take in more electrolytes and you have to take in more carbohydrates. So you have to pay attention more so than you do in other races about what's going on,
because your body has to then be able to rebound and do it again, sometimes the longer distance the next day. So what would be some of the strategies to the two of for the coach and for the person who's been doing these for so long? Like, how do you recover from one to the next? Like, what do you do during the weekend?
Well, for my clients, I've had a bunch of people do Dopey. The biggest thing with recovery is nutrition, actually. So that's the biggest part of the weekend. You have to plan really well nutritionally. You have to take your fuel on the course. Of course, you don't have to, but it's going to be a lot easier if you're fueled. And remember, like, the further you are in a deficit when you come out of a race, the more difficult it is for your body to recover. So you really don't want to be in a deficit for very long. So if you stay on top of your fueling at breakfast, then during the race, like even the 5K, say take a gel before the 5K, then immediately get in a recovery drink after, and then put your compression socks on and go, and then fuel for the next day. Your job when you get done your first race is to fuel for the next day. Rest and fuel for the next day.
And what do you do specifically?
I mean, I definitely eat a big breakfast after every races. I'm hydrating the week before, constantly with electrolytes in water to prepare myself. And then I'm constantly refueling afterwards with electrolytes, snacking throughout the day, never letting myself get hungry, because it's not good, because then you do get into a deficit, and then you feel like you're kind of starting behind the 8 ball as you go further along in the race weekend with the longer race distances. And then it's usually trying to stay off your feet, compression socks, relaxing. Like if you feel like your feet are getting tired, getting off your feet for a little bit for the day, not necessarily always going to the park like I did.
But when you're such an experienced dopey.
But it's like, it's listening to your body, I think, is the best thing to do. Like if you're tired, take a nap. If you want to get off your feet for a little bit, get off your feet for a little bit. You don't need to be a hero. You don't need to you don't need to be out there doing everything at that time. Like your goal is to reach the start line and finish line of all the races. So it's not however you get there, what you need to do that. It's like, it's all part of the prep. It's all part of the mental game of multi-race weekends, is knowing that, especially I think personally for me, Dopey is never about the time. Like I'm not running it to run as fast as I can, get a PR. I'm running it for fun. I'm running it because I have friends that I see along the course. I'm helping friends or family get to the finish lines, just because it's a bit more of a social event in that case.
And you get to be dressed up.
And you get to be dressed up, and you get to be fun, and you get to see all the fun sights and sounds along the courses at these races too, that's I think half the fun of it.
I had one of my clients actually ride a roller coaster during the marathon.
Did you? Have you ever done that?
I have never personally done it. I have timed it out every year where I could ride Everest in Animal Kingdom, and I'm just always terrified the ride is going to break down. But I had friends who in Animal Kingdom, which is not even really right around halfway through the marathon, They did Kilimanjaro Safari, which is way off the course, and that's like a 20-minute ride. They did Everest, and they did It's Tough to Be a Bug. And I'm just like, that's still then also running another 14 to 15 miles.
Yeah, no thanks. Oh,
and then people
crazy.
then also do that in Hollywood Studios. Like, I know someone who went on Tower of Terror, and I'm just like, that's just crazy to me.
So you could do really any ride. I thought maybe there was like one specific one that like, okay, all the marathoners is, can go, but this you could just pick a ride.
If the park is open.
It's open at 8, I think.
Yeah.
So
if the rides are open, the run starts at 5 a.m.
Okay.
So you really won't get on anything in Magic Kingdom, but after that, anything is fair game. You just, as long as you finish ahead of the balloon ladies, and if you start early enough, they don't care. So I've seen people across the finish line with a turkey leg and a beer in hand. Yep. So it's just like, it is absolutely bonkers, but people have so much fun. It's just like people plan out and they know like what time points they need to hit to make sure they stay ahead of pace. But then they're running basically an 8-hour marathon. And that's just because they are taking the time, they're having fun, they're enjoying the course. And that's just, I think, kind of the charm of the Run Disney races is the fact that while it's not promoted as something you can do during the run, people will do it because people know about it, because people talk about it, because it is just kind of a crazy thing. Like, you think, oh, you're halfway through a marathon, jump on a roller coaster. You're 22 miles into a marathon, let's go jump on Tower of Terror. Like,
oh, my brain, like that blows my mind because I would be like, what happens when your adrenaline goes crazy and then you have to get off and you have all this cortisol pump? And then you got to dump, and then you're like going to run. I'm like, my science brain is like, my mind is blown. But she had a blast doing it.
Right.
The funny thing about her, she hit her split button. So she knew how long she was going to be on the ride. Which
it's all about data.
Yes. I was looking at her data, and I'm like, wow, it took her 2 minutes and 31 seconds to do that. And I'm like, that's not that long.
That's really not that long.
Really, in a marathon. Like,
no.
It blew my mind. It blew my mind. And kudos to her. That's awesome.
Is that the first client
It's the first client in 20 years I've ever had get on a roller coaster during a race. I was like shocked.
And the best part is with Disney is that you get those pictures. So she'll always have a picture of her riding a roller coaster in her race outfit.
So crazy. I would like an ounce of that chill. Yeah. I would just like an ounce of it. I want to say I'd like to do it, but I just don't know if I could do it. I probably am just too. I don't think I could do it.
I'm like, well, I'll hit the park at the right time to like be able to do it, but then I get to like Everest and Animal Kingdom, and I'm like, no, it's like I don't think I want to get this done. I just want to get it going, because it's like, you know how much more you have left to do, and it's just like, I just don't know if I want to like sit down on the ride for that long, and then you never know. But fortunately, it seems that it's kind of also become well known with the cast members. So the cast members will just like funnel the runners on and do full trains of runners who want to do it, because they have you go down like the single rider line. So they know not to make you wait too long. But it's one of those things I haven't had the courage quite yet.
That's my thing. I don't know if I'll have the courage, but I think it's so great because there's a race for everybody, right?
Exactly.
Like anybody, if you want to do something like that, go for it. Like that's great. That's what keeps it fun.
That's what keeps it fun.
Exactly.
And there are, so we have. It's always to me there's 2 in January that are multi-race in Florida. There's the Dopey with Disney, and then the Donna is also in January. Is that in February?
It might be the first. It's the first week of February, I think.
Okay. And then, so that's a multi-race weekend, and that's in Jacksonville. And then Gasparilla Distance Classic is a 3rd weekend in February, and that's here in Tampa. And there are 4 distances that you can do, 2 in a day. So it's only in 2 days, but you're doing 2 races in a day, and then another 2 races in a day. Yeah. And you have plenty of clients who do those.
Yeah, and those are a little bit more of a challenge just because you have to stay warm in between the races. So that's like foam rolling, getting refueled really quickly, and not sitting down. A lot of people think they want to sit down after a race, but if you have a race coming up in another 45 minutes to an hour, you do not want to sit down. Like that will just make everything seize up, and so you want to stay warm.
Yeah, because not temperature warm.
No, you want to keep your muscles warm, and like sometimes like foam rolling in between, or doing some more dynamic stretching or walking around can help. But that's the challenge with those races, that by the time you get to the 8K in Gasparilla, you're like, okay, uncle, I want to be done.
Because there actually is a pretty significant break between so that people can do all four. There, you might start and it might be several hours before you go again if you ran fast enough in the first one. So
and it's usually hot at Gasparilla. Usually there's, at least one day that's hot. So you got to be on your electrolytes, on your salt. It's like really the biggest thing with these races is planning. Like you just have to be a planner. If you're not a planner,
do the one
probably would just stick with one race.
Have you ever done any other multi-race weekends, Kim?
I mean, I've done a lot of the different Disney challenges where they'll pair the 5 or the 10K and the half marathon, or they have one weekend where they do a 5K, a 10K, and a 10 miler. I've only ever done one race where it's 2 in a day. So I've done like a 5K, 10K stack in a single day. That was tough.
Yeah,
that was tough. That was also in the beginning when I was just starting to get into running, because I had a friend who was doing it like, oh yeah, if I'm going to do it, you should do it too. And I'm just like, okay. Yeah. And then I did it. And just like at the end of it, because they started with the 5K and then they did the 10K. And by the end of the 10K, I was just like dead on my feet. And I just didn't know what to expect.
Well, and you also didn't have a lot of the knowledge that you get from being just experienced in running. Okay, this is going to make me feel like this, so I need to do this.
Yes.
When as you learn more, you do you do better. And if that was an early race for you, I'm sure that was tough.
Oh, it was definitely on the harder side. I've learned a lot from that, and then just kind of continuing to do the multi-race weekends, like mostly through Disney. You just you kind of learn and. You kind of figure it out. And just like sometimes the hardest part, I think, of those, especially like going back to Dopey, are the multi days in a row of getting up very early.
Yes.
Because it's like the Run Disney races start at 5 o'clock in the morning, but they want you in your corral ready to go by 4:15 in the morning. So you just have to constantly think back timing it. Well, then it's going to take me 20 minutes to get to Epcot. How much time do I need to get ready, and how much time do I need to eat in the morning? And then you also need to eat later while you're in the corral as well. So it's just kind of figuring out. So you're getting sometimes up at 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:30 in the morning for a 5 a.m. start of the race just because of the logistics of it all. I mean, it's fun. It's tough. You kind of get used to it and just kind of suck it up. But then you also think about working backwards is that, well, if you normally go to bed at like 10 o'clock at night, that doesn't work. So then you have to force yourself to go to bed earlier. So it's I always try to do lights out by 8 o'clock, just try and get at least 6 hours of sleep. But it's hard otherwise. It's just you kind of get used to it and do that. I avoid as much caffeine as possible to make sure I'm able to fall asleep the best I can. Does it always work? Absolutely not. But
the effort is there.
I'm trying.
A for effort.
Well, and also because this is, I know that you have, Kim works here at the WFLA, by the way. So we talk a lot about this. So I know a lot about her running, and there are times where you put it all in for the PR.
Yes.
This is, you have to have a completely different mindset.
Absolutely.
You're out there being like, I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to sleep if I can. I'm going to try. But it is in the end fun for you. This is different than going out running hard.
Yes, this is not running hard. This is going out, having fun, enjoying the atmosphere, the characters, the entertainment along the course. It's I know when I'm preparing to run a race for a PR or when I'm going to try and run hard to kind of challenge myself. These are not these multi-race weekends because there's just so much that goes into it. And it's for those type of things when you're going to be running other distances besides what you might want to run hard for. It's to me, it's not worth it. I'd rather put in the training and the mindset because it is such a different mindset from how you prepare and what you do the morning of for a race that you're running for fun versus a race that you're doing for a challenge to try and PR your race. So
and there are people that do try to PR some, and there are PRs that happen in a Dopey challenge. I've seen it happen. The funny thing about it is it often happens by accident. And I tell people, it's mostly because people take the pressure off themselves when they do multiple races. They're like, oh, I'm just going to go out here and have fun and I can't PR. And then they run relaxed and they run a PR. And I would still argue that just the same as weather, you still can run faster on a day where you're rested. So even if you do get a PR, that just means you're in better shape than you thought you were.
So do you have to temper people's expectations for your clients, but when they go into these, or do you just, or most of them, or do most of them just realize this is what it is?
It depends on the person. Everything's so individualized, right? So when I like these race weekends because it's great training. If you have a marathon down the road and you don't want to go do your long runs by yourself, it's a great training weekend, especially if you run the majority of them easy. But I also have a lot of people that'll be like, I want to tempo run the 5K, then I'm going to recovery run the 10K, and then I'm going to like do a progressive run for the half, and then I'm just going to run the marathon easy. Or I want to PR the half and run the marathon easy. Like there's so many different combinations that you can do it in a safe way. And it's funny, like I had everybody's plans in last week because I had a bunch of people doing different challenges. And Friday night, everybody sends me a text. It was literally like 6 o'clock at night, and I was out with my family, and I get all these texts. Coach, what do we do now? What do we do now? It's the race is like, what do we do now? And I'm like, okay, guys, like, let's just be calm. Let's talk about the ways that we can change this. And we changed pace plans and we changed goals and we pivoted, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody was fine. And Luke was like, this is so crazy that they can't like figure it out on their own. I'm like, this is what they pay me for.
Right.
This is how that we decide together. We decide on the goal and then we come up with a different pace plan. And that's okay. We just pivoted. And some people decided to run it easy. Some people decided to run it harder because it was a shorter distance. It's fun. It's all fun stuff.
I do think that is, when you have these multi-races, you have to be able to change on the fly or, talk with your coach or just, with him, like, okay, this is how I'm going to do this because I know if I do it this way, it's going to be too hard. Yes. So you have to be able to check in on how you feel, check in on how your sleeping is, all that thing. Race day may be different each time.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, Maria did bring up a good point. Like it was very late in the day when Disney notified everyone that the half marathon was going to be cut from 13.1 miles to 7.1 miles just because there was concern about weather that morning. So you just kind of figure out like, okay, well, it's 6 miles off the race. And I personally did not do it, but I did see some people before the race, they were running their 6 miles to get to 13.1.
I get that.
Before the race even started. So they were running around the Epcot parking lots, and it was kind of neat to see the folks out there. I know other ones who posted and said that they did it afterwards at their hotel, or they ran around the parking lot before they got kind of kicked out after the 7.1 miles that they had done. So people still found ways to get to their 13.1 because if it was their first Dopey or even like their first half marathon, because a lot of first timers do use Disney because they hear about how fun it is and just all the entertainment around the course, that it's well supported. So it's like when you have that happen, it's like you do get disappointed because I remember it's not the first time that a run over this weekend has had been impacted by weather. In 2017, they actually outright canceled the half.
Yeah,
and that was going to. I was doing it that weekend as well. And that was actually going to be my sister's first half marathon. Oh. So she was there really excited about it. And then then we found out the night before, it got canceled. So it was hard because it's like you feel really bad because you knew all the weeks of training. And it's like the early mornings, the sweating, the soreness, and all that kind of stuff. You're like, is all that really for nothing?
She's got to sign up for another one.
And that's what she did. Yep. So we ended up, she signed up for something else that like for later down the road, but you just kind of take it as it is. And I mean,
and you don't get mad at the race directors because I think what people don't realize is there's not a single race director out there that wants to cancel a race. It is so much harder for them to cancel the race, but at the end of the day, like we can't have volunteers being at risk and we can't have, we need, police officers and everything to be available to help other people that really need it that aren't running, right? Like we can't be selfish. So just remember that a lot goes into it, and don't get mad at the race directors, please.
No, I mean, I completely understood. It was for safety reasons. I mean, there's no reason to risk, as you said, the volunteers, the cast members, the runners, anyone out there, because they start putting people out on the course 2 o'clock in the morning. And it's just, they're out there so much earlier that while it's disappointing and it's really unfortunate that it happened, no one wants it to happen. But it's like you also have to realize that at the end of the day, everyone was safe that crossed the finish line, that was there in the area. And that's the top priority. There's always going to be another half marathon. There's always going to be another race that, while it may stink that you weren't able to do the one that you planned for and you were there for, you at least you'll be there for the next one.
It's a metaphor for life, right?
Yeah.
Pivot, baby.
Yep. Never let something, don't sit in the sadness for too long.
Yeah, not too long. 24 hours and then we move on.
So, so that is any other strategies that you offer or that you have found about multi-race weekends? Because we do have the ones coming up. We have Donna and Gasparilla both coming up.
I think we pretty much touched on most things except for maybe, I don't know if I mentioned foam rolling. Keep a foam roller handy. You know, they have the Theraguns. You can bring one of those for after the race and before the race. You know, foam rolling before the race when you're stiff, and it is not going to feel good. But you'll feel much better the first mile than you will otherwise. And just allow your body a few miles to warm up because your legs are tired. That's all. So don't get in your head and be like, oh, this is terrible. My legs are terrible. But after 4 miles, you'll start to feel better and it'll be okay.
Yep. And then you had sort of a breakthrough this year where it was different because you felt so good at the end.
I know. And I think it was mostly because I added in more strength training. Like I'd always done that, but it was always so secondary that I think adding in lifting weights, doing more, concentrating more on my legs and leg day and stuff like that. I think that was kind of the breakthrough, just to kind of see that running will get you there, but when you start training the rest of your body as well, it's going to make that finish line feel so much easier when you get there. And I think that was kind of the big breakthrough for me, and not just like lifting, but lifting heavy. So
you just don't break down as quickly.
Yes.
That's what it is.
And I think that's why my legs felt good, because that's always the thing. Like I just remember there's been a couple of times where it's like you like are wobbling around, and I was like, did not have that happen this year, and I was very happy about that.
Came into work on Monday.
I know, walking fine, no
right
problems. Yeah.
All right, so it's time for our coaches drill. So this is where we give our coach 1 minute to tell us some thoughts. And today we're talking about knowing your goal.
So when you're doing multi-races, it's really important to decide your goal ahead of time and then stick to it. Because it's very easy when we get all caught up in everything to be like, oh, I feel good today. I'm going to race it. I'm going to do something different than I planned. And then that's when racing these multiple races can get really hairy and scary, because then you're not prepared as well as you would have been otherwise. It's okay to try to race them, but just know that you're going to go in that way, and you're bringing your nutrition and your foam rolling and you're on top of it that way. If you're going to run them all easy, stay easy with it. Just don't get caught up in the craziness. Please don't get caught up in the craziness. Stick to your guns on this.
Easy to get caught up in the craziness. So
yes.
know what your plan is and try to stick to it, but then also you might have to pivot.
Yeah, you might have to pivot. I mean,
but that's a new goal.
I've had
yes.
many goals with these races. Like I've had people say, I want to run 10-minute pace for every single mile of the Dopey Challenge. And I'm like, okay, then you got to train that way. Like you got to train that way for that goal. And then you still might have to pivot. Yeah. But know your goal, train for that goal. Don't not have a goal. That's kind of, unless your goal is to just have fun and make it easy, and then that's still a roller coaster. That's still a goal. But just be really careful about expectations, because it'll be fine as long as you are managing those expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I mean,
Kim
it's
says,
true. Yes. No, it's absolutely true. It's just you kind of have to go into those weekends prepared for anything. It's like you never know how your body's going to feel the morning of the race. Like, is it going to be a little bit sore, or are you going to feel really good? And then it's just take in the ambiance, enjoy it. Like that's the biggest thing that I've learned is enjoy every mile. Take it 1 mile at a time, whether you're your first mile in the 5K or mile 25 of the marathon.
Yeah.
It's just thinking it, like putting it out that way, and just you signed up for it.
You'd be surprised, you could actually do it pretty easily. And do you know why? Because you run so regularly and you're so consistent. Yeah. Like it seems like overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. But the reality is it's just like running every day. Like your body is used to running every day.
I do like running every day.
Yeah.
If you train for it, and that's the biggest thing with these things.
You're just running every day.
Is you got to train. And
you got to train.
You got to train. Like hands down, like the training, it's time consuming. There's just so much time that goes into it, because you're training your body to run increased distances back to back to back.
And do some doubles.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do some doubles.
Yes.
3 in the morning, 3 at night. Just kind of freak your body out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just, that's all.
Okay, that's
just
all.
A little.
Yeah.
Just freak your body out. That's all. It's nice. Just like, you could do it.
So it's ready for the freak out when you get there, right?
Yes, congratulations on another Dopey.
Thank you,
awesome.
thank you.
Congratulations to all the Dopey runners and all the Disney runners, and those getting ready for the Donna, those getting ready for the Gasparilla Distance Classic. We hope to hear. And then, of course, all who are running the BDR 10K with us next Saturday.
I can't wait to see you
with
guys.
All these strategies to use. Bye, everybody.
Bye.